They laughed and said, "You're just hospital security." Said it right to my face like I was some kind of joke. Like the uniform I wore and the badge clipped to my chest didn't mean anything. And I stood there in the lobby of St. Michael's Medical Center, hands clasped in front of me, keeping my expression neutral, professional, because I've learned over the years that reacting only makes things worse. But what they didn't know was that in less than 15 minutes, the ER was going to go completely silent, and suddenly everyone would realize I wasn't just hospital security, I was the only person in that building who knew exactly what to do. I've worked as a security officer at this hospital in downtown Chicago for 12 years now, and I'm 47 years old, short dark hair with some gray starting to show at the temples, clean shaven, broad shoulders from years of staying in shape because this job requires it. And I wear a dark navy security uniform with a utility belt that holds my radio, keys, flashlight, and the tools I need to keep this place safe. And my ID badge is always visible, clipped right above my left pocket. And I carry myself with what people have called quiet authority. I don't need to raise my voice to make people listen. I just need to be present, observant, disciplined, because that's what this job demands. That afternoon, the ER was busier than usual. Ambulances coming in every 20 minutes, nurses moving quickly between rooms, doctors barking orders, and the waiting area was packed with people, some injured, some sick, some just worried about loved ones who'd been brought in. And I was stationed near the main entrance, monitoring who came in and out, making sure no one bypassed the check-in desk, making sure people stayed calm even though tensions were high. And that's when a group of four people walked in, two men and two women, all dressed like they'd just come from some corporate event, expensive suits, designer handbags, and they had this air about them, this confidence that came from never being told no, and they walked straight past the check-in desk without stopping. I stepped forward, positioned myself between them and the hallway leading to the patient rooms, and I said calmly, "Excuse me, you need to check in at the desk before going any further." And one of the men, mid-40s, slicked back hair, looked me up and down and laughed, actually laughed and said, "We're here to see someone. We don't need to check in." And I kept my voice steady, repeated the policy, explained that for patient safety and privacy, everyone had to register at the desk first. And the other man, younger, maybe early 30s, rolled his eyes and said, "Come on, you're just hospital security. You don't have real authority here. Just let us through." And the women with them giggled, and I felt that familiar weight, that feeling of being dismissed, being treated like I didn't matter. I've spent 12 years in this hospital. I've restrained violent patients who were a danger to themselves and others. I've performed CPR on people who stopped breathing in the waiting room. I've talked down individuals having psychiatric crises. I've coordinated with police during lockdown situations. I've escorted doctors and nurses to their cars at 3 in the morning because this neighborhood isn't always safe. And I've done all of it without fanfare, without recognition, because that's the job. But to these people standing in front of me, I was just an obstacle, just someone in a uniform who thought he had power but really didn't. And they tried to push past me, and I stepped to the side, blocking their path again. And I said, my voice deeper now, more firm, "Sir, I need you to step back and go to the check-in desk. This is hospital policy, and I will enforce it." The man with the slicked back hair got angry then, his face flushed, and he said loudly, loud enough that people in the waiting area turned to look, "Who do you think you are? You're not a doctor. You're not a nurse. You're just security. You have no right to tell us what to do." And I stayed calm, kept my hands visible, non-threatening, and I said, "I'm the person responsible for safety in this building, and right now you're violating protocol, so I'm asking you one more time to comply." And he stepped closer, got right in my face and said, "Or what? You're going to arrest me. You don't even have a real gun." And the people with him laughed again, and I could feel the tension building, could feel other visitors watching, waiting to see what would happen. And I was about to call for backup when everything changed. An alarm went off, sharp and piercing, the kind of alarm that means something critical is happening. And immediately the ER entrance doors burst open and paramedics rushed in, pushing a gurney. And on that gurney was a man, unconscious, blood soaking through his shirt, and the paramedics were shouting, GSW to the abdomen, blood pressure dropping, we need trauma now. And the ER exploded into controlled chaos, nurses running toward the trauma bay, doctors pulling on gloves, and right behind the paramedics. Two more people came through the doors, a woman screaming, hysterical, and a man trying to hold her back. And I recognized the look in his eyes immediately. Rage, grief, desperation. And I saw his hand move toward his waistband, saw the outline of something metallic, and my training kicked in instantly. I moved fast, positioned myself between the man and the hallway where doctors were working, and I said loudly, clearly, "Sir, stop right there. Keep your hands where I can see them." And he froze, looked at me with wild eyes, and the woman screamed, "They shot my brother, they shot him." And the man yelled, "I'm going to kill whoever did this." And his hand was still near his waistband, and the entire ER went silent. Everyone stopped moving. Nurses, doctors, visitors, everyone. And I kept my voice calm, steady, the way I'd been trained, and I said, "I understand you're angry, I understand you're scared, but I need you to take your hand away from your waist and put both hands up, right now." And he hesitated, and I could see him calculating, deciding whether to comply or escalate. And I took one step forward, made myself bigger, more present, and I said again, "Hands up now." He stared at me for what felt like an eternity, and then slowly, very slowly, he raised his hands. And I saw he didn't have a weapon, it had just been his phone. But the threat had been real, the danger had been real, and I radioed for police backup, kept my eyes on him the whole time. And within seconds, two other security officers arrived, and we carefully de-escalated the situation, got him and the woman to a private waiting area, got them water, got them information about the patient, and by the time police arrived 10 minutes later, the situation was under control. No one was hurt. No one had been threatened further, and the ER was able to continue functioning. After everything calmed down, after the patient was stabilized and taken to surgery, after the man and woman were escorted out by police for questioning, the same group of people who had mocked me earlier were still standing near the entrance, and they were silent now, pale, shaken, and one of the women looked at me and said quietly, "We didn't know, we didn't realize." And I just nodded, didn't say anything, because what was there to say? And the man with the slicked back hair who had gotten in my face earlier wouldn't look at me, just stared at the floor. And they finally went to the check-in desk like they should have done from the beginning. The head of the ER, Dr. Patel, came up to me about an hour later, pulled me aside and said, "You handled that perfectly. If you hadn't recognized the threat, if you hadn't positioned yourself the way you did, that could have turned into a disaster." And I told him I was just doing my job, and he shook his head and said, "No, you did more than that. You kept everyone safe, patients, staff, visitors, everyone." And he shook my hand, and some of the nurses who'd witnessed what happened thanked me as they walked past, and I appreciated it. But I didn't need the recognition. I needed people to understand that security isn't just about checking IDs and watching cameras. It's about reading situations, managing risks, being the person who stands between chaos and order. That night when my shift ended and I walked out to my car in the employee parking lot, I thought about what had happened, about how quickly everything could have gone wrong, about how those people had looked at me like I was nothing, like my job was meaningless, and then how their faces changed when they realized I was the only person in that moment who knew exactly what to do. And I realized something I'd known for a long time, but hadn't fully accepted. That respect isn't something you demand. It's something people give when they finally see you for who you really are. When they realize that the person they ignored, the person they dismissed, is actually the person keeping them safe. I'm still hospital security. I still check IDs and monitor hallways and respond to codes and walk nurses to their cars at night. I still wear the same uniform and carry the same radio and do the same job I've been doing for 12 years. But I know now, more than ever, that this job matters. That every time I put on this uniform, every time I clip that badge to my chest, I'm making a choice to protect people who don't even know they need protecting. And that's enough. That's more than enough. Because at the end of the day, when people are scared, when things go wrong, when someone needs to take control, they don't look for doctors or nurses or administrators. They look for me. They look for the person in the dark uniform standing quietly in the corner. The person they thought was just hospital security, and they realized too late that I was always the one in control.